In the ancient shadows of the Judean hills, a voice resonated with such power that it shook the very foundations of the kingdom's religious and political hierarchy. Welcome to this comprehensive 10-minute journey into the life and legacy of the prophet Micah, whose timeless vision of justice and mercy remains essential for our modern world. We shall walk through the rugged landscapes of the past to uncover truths that resonate deeply within our collective soul today. Prepare yourselves for an immersive experience that challenges our perceptions of power and calls us toward a higher path of integrity. Our exploration begins with a man who dared to speak truth to power. Micah emerged from the rural outskirts of Moresheth, bringing a perspective that was grounded in the harsh realities of the common people suffering under systemic oppression. He witnessed the systematic exploitation of hardworking families who were being stripped of their ancestral heritage by those who possessed the wealth and influence to tilt the scales of justice in their own favor. This rural background provided him with a unique clarity that the urban elite had long since abandoned for the sake of profit. The prophet observed with growing indignation as the wealthy elite manipulated legal systems to seize ancestral lands from vulnerable families who had no means of defending their heritage. In the bustling markets of Jerusalem, the scales were often tilted in favor of the greedy, while the cries of the fatherless and the widows were ignored by those who claimed to serve the divine. Every day was a struggle for the righteous who sought to maintain their integrity in a world that rewarded deception and cruelty. Within the towering walls of the capital, a different story was being written by the leaders who should have been the guardians of the people's welfare and spiritual integrity. Micah described these rulers as men who hated the good and loved the evil, tearing the very skin from the backs of those they were sworn to lead and protect with honor. The judicial systems were manipulated to serve the interests of the highest bidder, leaving the common citizen without any hope for a fair hearing. The prophet stood before the gates of the city and declared that the very foundations of Jerusalem would be plowed like a field if the hearts of its inhabitants did not undergo a radical transformation. This was a message that no one wanted to hear, yet it was the only truth that could save them from the impending catastrophe that was looming on the horizon of their destiny. Every stone in the magnificent temple seemed to bear witness to the hypocrisy of a leadership that sought the divine blessing while ignoring justice. The first blow of judgment was aimed at the northern kingdom of Samaria, whose idols and religious deviations had led the people away from the source of their true strength and identity. Micah envisioned the city being reduced to a heap of ruins in an open field, its foundations exposed and its precious treasures scattered like dust in a violent windstorm. This vivid portrayal of destruction served as a sobering warning to the southern kingdom of Judah, showing that the divine presence would not tolerate the neglect. The mountains seemed to melt away like wax before a roaring fire, as the prophet described the arrival of a reckoning that would leave no corner of the land untouched by its consequences. Those who had built their houses on the sand of deception were now facing a flood of reality that would wash away their illusions of security and leave them standing naked before history. The once vibrant streets were now silent, a haunting monument to the folly of placing trust in fleeting riches rather than integrity. Amidst this turmoil, Micah found himself in direct conflict with the false prophets who were telling the people exactly what they wanted to hear in order to maintain their own comfort. These men promised peace and prosperity to those who fed them, while declaring a holy war against anyone who dared to challenge their comfortable and self-serving religious narratives. The true prophet stood in stark contrast to these hired voices, declaring that he was filled with power and the Spirit. Micah's courage in standing alone against the tide of public opinion is a testament to the enduring power of a conscience that is anchored in something far greater than the whims of the crowd. Every word he spoke was a deliberate act of resistance against the spiritual lethargy that had settled over the nation like a thick and suffocating blanket of indifference. He refused to compromise the message for the sake of popularity, knowing that a false sense of security was the greatest enemy of the people. Yet, in the midst of this darkness, Micah introduced a dramatic turn toward hope, pointing away from the corrupt centers of power toward a vision of restoration. This shift in the narrative transforms the documentary from a tale of woe into a breathtaking vision of a future where peace is not just the absence of war. The promised transformation would provide a source of endurance for the faithful remnant who refuse to bow to the idols of their age. To achieve this vision of restoration, Micah pointed toward a humble and unexpected beginning in the small village of Bethlehem Ephrathah, a place considered insignificant by the world. He prophesied that from this lowly location would emerge a ruler whose origins are from ancient times, one who would shepherd his people with strength and majesty. This leader would not be like the corrupt rulers of Jerusalem, but would instead be a source of true security. The arrival of such a shepherd would mean the end of fear for the flock, as he would stand and feed them with a compassion that reaches to the ends of the earth. This turn in the narrative shifts the focus from the failures of the present to the certainties of a future that is being prepared in the quietest ways. The starlight over Bethlehem seemed to illuminate a path that leads away from the grandeur of empires and toward the simplicity of truth. The prophet's vision did not end with judgment, but rather expanded into a portrayal of a future restoration that would encompass the entire world in its scope. He saw a day when the mountain of the temple would be established as the highest of all heights, drawing people from every nation toward its summit. This was a vision of global reconciliation where different cultures would find a common ground in the pursuit of divine wisdom and communal harmony. The most famous image from this prophetic vision is the transformation of weapons of war into tools of agriculture, a symbol of a society that has finally prioritized life over death. Micah envisioned a world where swords would be beaten into plowshares and spears into pruning hooks, signaling an end to the destructive cycles of violence. In this new reality, every individual would be able to sit under their own vine and fig tree, possessing true dignity. This was not a dream of an unattainable utopia, but rather a practical call to reorient our values toward the things that truly matter for the flourishing of every human being. The fields were filled with the abundance of a harvest that was shared by all, reflecting the divine intention for a creation that is characterized by generosity. Every person who tended his vine in safety was a living testament to the power of a vision that refuses to accept the inevitability of war. In one of the most dramatic passages, Micah presented a divine case against the people, calling the mountains and the foundations of the earth to stand as witnesses to the trial. The Creator asked what had been done to weary the people, reminding them of the many acts of redemption and guidance that had characterized their shared history. This powerful device forced the audience to reconsider their lack of gratitude and their persistent failure to live up to their calling. The climax of the prophetic message is found in the simple yet profound declaration of what is truly required of every human being in response to the divine presence. Micah famously stated that the Creator has already shown us what is good, to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with the divine through every day. Acting justly involves a relentless commitment to fairness and the protection of the rights of all people, especially the vulnerable. Loving mercy requires a heart that is open to forgiveness and a spirit that seeks to alleviate the suffering of others whenever and wherever it is possible to do so. Walking humbly is the foundational attitude that recognizes our own limitations and our profound dependence on a wisdom and a grace that is far greater than our own. This threefold requirement provides a practical and universal framework for living a life that is both meaningful and aligned with eternal purposes. As we reflect on these powerful words from nearly 3,000 years ago, we find that they are more relevant today than ever before in our complex global society. The challenge of Micah remains a light for those who seek to build a world where justice is not an exception, but the standard. His voice calls out to us across the ages, inviting us to become participants in the ongoing story of restoration and to contribute our lives to peace. For 10 minutes, we have walked through the hills of Judah and the corridors of ancient power, uncovering the bedrock of ethical living. May the echoes of Micah's courage inspire us all to stand for truth in our own time. Thank you for joining us on this immersive 10-minute journey through the profound prophecies of Micah. May you carry the lessons of justice, mercy, and humility with you as you navigate the complexities of your own path in the modern world. Remember that every small act of integrity contributes to the grand restoration of our shared humanity. Farewell for now, and may your footsteps be guided by the light of the eternal truths we have explored today. We hope to see you again soon.